my dear student. Today we will continue our lesson about mass and density. So, at the end of this video, you should be able to define density. At the beginning, let us review what we had taken before. We will start from matter. As you learned in Chapter 1, matter has measurable properties. What are they? Volume and mass. Do you remember the definition of volume? Yes, volume is the space occupied by an object. What is the mass? The mass is the quantity of matter that an object contains. What is the unit of volume in international system? The unit of volume in international system is meter cube. What is the unit of mass in international system? The unit of mass in international system is kilogram. Now, how can we determine the volume of solid? There are two methods. What are they? Calculation or immersion. How can we determine the volume of liquid? By using graduated cylinder. This is the graduated cylinder. Now, what is the instrument used to measure the mass? The balance. How many types of balance do we have? 2. What are they? Digital balance and balance with equal arms. Now, observe the following figure carefully. The two boys have the same box. This is the first box. This is the second box. But everyone filled the box with different substance. The first one said, "I think my box is heavier," while the second refused and said, "No, the two have the same mass because they are the same size." The question now, which one is right? The answer is not easy. So, I will help you to find the correct answer. First, let us ask the question in a form of a scientific problem. So, what can we ask? We can ask, do different substances with same mass have also same volume and vice versa? To answer this question, the following experiments are performed. Watch with me experiment 1 and please I want you to fill the table in your worksheet, page 18, during the performing of the experiment. Are you ready? Let us watch. The materials of our experiment are balance with equal arms, 2 beakers, standard masses, 2 graduated cylinders. First, pour 50 ml of water in beaker 1 and pour 50 ml of water in beaker 2. Then, to determine the mass of water, a balance is used. What is the role of balance? It is an instrument used to measure the mass. Now, to measure the mass of the 50 ml water contained in beaker 1, place beaker 1 on the first arm of the balance, then start adding standard masses till have 2 equal arms. Is it enough? Yes. So the mass of beaker 1 is 50 plus 50 plus 20, 120 gram. The question now, does beaker 2 has the same mass? Let us see. Replace beaker 1 by beaker 2. Then add standard masses. What is the mass of beaker 2? The mass of beaker 2 is 120 gram. Have you filled the table? Excellent. Check your answers with me now. First, what is the mass of beaker 1? 120 gram. What is the mass of beaker 2? Also 120 gram. What is the volume of water contained in beaker 1? 10 milliliter. What is the volume of water contained in beaker 2? 50 milliliter. Are your answers correct? Great. Now let us solve the questions. Question number 1. Compare the masses of beaker 1 and 2. The mass of beaker 1 is 120 gram. The mass of beaker 2 is 120 gram. So, what is the answer? The mass of water in beaker 1, 120 gram, is equal to the mass of water in beaker 2, 120 gram. Question 2. Compare the volume of water in the two beakers. The volume of water in beaker 1, 50 milliliter, is equal to the volume of water in beaker 2, 50 milliliter. As you see in the table, 50 milliliter, 50 milliliter. Question number 3. Draw out a conclusion from this experiment. To have a convenient conclusion, we should organize the given, then answer. So, we have two same beakers 1 and 2, two same mass of beakers 120 gram, two same volume of water contained in the two beakers. What does this mean? Same substance having same volume will have the same mass. Keep the results of experiment 1 and watch with me experiment 2. During watching of the experiment, please, I want you to fill the table in your worksheet, page 18, the second table. The materials of this experiment are standard masses, balance, water, empty beaker, and 50 milliliter oil. We measured the mass of beaker 1, which contains 50 milliliter water in experiment 1. Do you remember its mass? Yes, it's 120 gram. Now, pour 50 milliliter of oil in beaker 3 and place it on the first arm of the balance. Start adding standard masses till the two arms become at the same level. Is it enough? Yes. What is the mass of beaker 2, which contains 50 milliliter oil? The mass of beaker 2 is 110 grams. Now, did you fill the table during the performing of the experiment? Very good. So, at the beginning, what is the volume of water contained in beaker 1? The volume of water was given from experiment 1, so 50 milliliter. What is the volume of oil contained in beaker 3? 50 milliliter also. What is the mass of 50 milliliter of water contained in beaker 1? 120 gram. What is the mass of 50 milliliter oil contained in beaker 3? 110 gram. Are your answers correct? Excellent. Now, let us solve the questions together. Number 1. Compare the mass of beaker contains 50 milliliter of water to the mass of beaker contains 50 milliliter of oil. Read your answer with us. The mass of beaker contains 50 milliliter of water, which is 120 gram, is greater than the mass of a beaker contains 50 milliliter of oil, which is 110 gram. Pay attention. You should write the unit and the value, and don't forget the comparative word, which is greater in this example. Number 2. Compare the volume of water in the first beaker to that of oil in the third one. Yes, the volume of water in the first beaker 50 milliliter, so the value here is 50 and the unit is milliliter, is equal to that of oil in the third one, which is 50 milliliter. The comparative word here, equal, so don't forget it. Now, number 3. Draw out a conclusion from this experiment. What can you deduce? To draw a conclusion, you should use the comparison mentioned above. So, as you see, two different substances, which are water and oil, having the same volume, which is 50 milliliter, don't have the same mass. The volume of water is 50 milliliter, the volume of oil is also 50 milliliter, but the mass is different. So, what can you deduce? Two different substances having the same volume don't have the same mass. Now it's the time to perform the last experiment. The materials of this experiment are beaker 4, which contains 50 milliliter water, beaker 5, which is empty, and a beaker which contains an amount of oil, First, place beaker 4, which contains 50 ml of water, on the first arm of the balance. Then place the empty beaker on the second arm. Now, add oil to beaker 5 till the two arms become at the same level. What is the volume of oil added? To measure its volume, we will use the graduated cylinder. So, the volume of oil added is 40 milliliter. Have you filled the table? What is the mass of beaker 4? 120 gram. What is the mass of beaker 5? 120 gram also. What is the volume of water contained in beaker 4? 50 milliliter. What is the volume of oil contained in beaker 5? 40 milliliter. Now, let us solve the questions together. Question number 1. Compare the mass of beaker 4 to the mass of beaker 2. 120 gram, 120 gram. So the answer will be the mass of beaker 4, 120 gram, is equal to the mass of beaker 5, 120 gram. Question number 2. Compare the volume of beaker 4 to the volume of beaker 5. The volume of beaker 4, 50 milliliter, is less than the volume of beaker 5, 40 milliliter. As you see, 50 milliliter of water in beaker 4, 40 milliliter of oil in beaker 5. Question number 3. Draw out a conclusion. What can you conclude now? Two different substances, water and oil, having the same mass, 120 gram, will not have the same volume, 50 and 40 milliliter. Now, I want you to stop the video and try to use the performed experiments and answer the questions to solve number 4 alone. Have you finished? Compare your answer with my answer. The conclusion: oil and water will never have the same mass and volume at the same time since they are different substances. Do you know that the difference in mass of the same volume of oil and water, or the difference in volume of the same mass of water and oil, is due to a property related to mass and volume? This property is the density. What is the density? Density is the mass of the material in a volume of 1 meter cube. Every substance has a specific density. Example 1. The density of water is 1000 kg per meter cube. Each 1 meter cube of water contains 1000 kg. Example 2. The density of oil is 800 kg per meter cube. Each 1 meter cube of oil contains 800 kg. Thanks for your attention.